Early March 2026 marked a harrowing seismic turning point as the Strait of Hormuz, the world's vital pulsing energy artery, abruptly froze. The silence of the straits was shattered by a devastating joint aerial and naval operation launched by the US and Israel. This surgical but brutal strike targeted strategic Iranian hubs, resulting in the tragic deaths of not only senior Iranian military officials, but also innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. Ironically, this carnage unfolded while the Dama negotiations were still in progress in Geneva and Vienna, casting a long, dark shadow over the halls of diplomacy. As the world watches with bated breath, a haunting, unsettling question looms over every capital. Is this the dawn of a third global conflagration, or simply another violent chapter in the perpetual, agonizing struggle for international hegemony? The hostility between Iran and the US-Israel bloc is far from a recent development. It is a long, simmering resentment that has finally boiled over. The controversy surrounding Iran's nuclear program traces its roots back to the early 2000s, specifically when the veil of secrecy was lifted from the clandestine uranium enrichment facilities in Natanz and Arak in 2002. Since that time, Iran has remained under the unblinking, rigorous surveillance of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Despite 2 decades of constant monitoring, the IAEA's consistent reports have acknowledged Iran's increased enrichment capacity, but have never officially confirmed the existence of an active nuclear weapons program. Data from the IAEA for 2023 and 2024 reveals that Iran reached 60% uranium purity, technically bordering the 90% threshold required for weapons, yet remaining officially below weapons-grade standards. Nevertheless, the US and Israel have leveraged these technical facts as fuel for a catastrophic threat narrative, painting Iran as an imminent danger. Iran, however, passionately maintains that its enrichment activities are exclusively for civilian energy production and the creation of life-saving medical isotopes, positioning itself as a nation unjustly besieged. The 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, once offered a flicker of hope, a rare moment of de-escalation where Iran agreed to cap enrichment at 3.67% and accept intrusive international oversight in return for the promise of sanctions relief. This fragile stability shattered in 2018 when US President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from the deal, re-implementing a maximum pressure campaign, a brutal, unrelenting set of sanctions targeting oil exports, international banking via SWIFT, and sovereign assets. World Bank statistics offer a cold look at the human cost, showing Iran's economy suffering a massive, crushing contraction between 2018 and 2020, with inflation spiraling to heights above 40%. When Donald Trump returned to office in early 2025, this strategy was not merely restored, but drastically intensified, pushed to a breaking point. The US demanded zero enrichment, a total, uncompromising prohibition on any form of uranium enrichment, even for civilian purposes. For Tehran, this was not just an economic demand, but a direct, existential infringement upon its national sovereignty as recognized under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT. Article 4 of the NPT clearly guarantees member states the right to develop peaceful nuclear energy, a right Iran staunchly refuses to surrender, framing its defiance as a defense of its inherent national dignity. Diplomacy finally reached a bloody impasse on June 13, 2025, when Israel executed targeted airstrikes against several key Iranian sites, justifying the move as a preemptive strike against an existential threat. Iran viewed this as a direct, cowardly act of aggression against a sovereign nation. 9 days later, on June 22nd, the United States escalated its involvement further by deploying B-2 Spirit stealth bombers and submarine-launched cruise missiles against 3 major facilities. While the White House declared the program successfully neutralized, independent defense analysts suggest the damage, while significant, remains repairable. Iran struck back on June 23, 2025, targeting a US base in Qatar, effectively initiating a dangerous new era of open tit-for-tat retaliation. The global media often paints the nuclear standoff as a binary struggle between an aggressive Iran and a defensive West. But the reality on the ground is far more nuanced and murky. Iran, a member of both the IAEA and NPT since 1970, insists that its nuclear efforts are legitimate under the letter of international law. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has remained firm, frequently questioning why nations like Brazil, Japan, and the Netherlands are permitted to operate civilian fuel cycles, while Iran is subjected to a zero-enrichment ultimatum. Tehran argues that these policies represent a clear, indefensible double standard, noting that Iran has consistently opened its doors to IAEA inspections and rejects the development of nuclear weapons as both ethically and theologically prohibited. By late 2025, Iran was battling on a dual front: a high-stakes geopolitical war and a volatile internal revolt. Mass protests erupted across Tehran, Mashhad, Isfahan, and Shiraz, driven by deep-seated economic despair, political dissatisfaction, and the crushing weight of long-term sanctions. While Human Rights Watch categorized these as the largest, most significant demonstrations in a decade, the government responded with a fierce, leading to hundreds of casualties and thousands of arrests. The US government's vocal, passionate support for these protesters was interpreted by Tehran as a calculated tactical instrument for regime change rather than genuine humanitarian concern. Many Iranian officials draw sobering parallels to the 2003 invasion of Iraq and the 2011 intervention in Libya, fearing that the rhetoric of human rights is being weaponized as a cynical, hollow pretext to justify foreign military intervention. The "all roads lead to Jerusalem" doctrine offers the deepest, most unsettling insight into the soul of this conflict. For the three Abrahamic faiths, Jerusalem is not just a city, but a cosmic, eternal symbol. The 2017 decision by the US to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital further destabilized the region, fueling the Pax Judaica discourse. Iran positions itself as the primary defiant defender of the Palestinian cause, maintaining a vast, shadow network of ideological alliances with groups in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei views this as forward defense, the strategic necessity of ensuring that the fires of war are fought far from Iranian soil to keep the heartland safe. While the term World War III is frequently weaponized by pundits to spark fear, the more realistic, colder outlook is one of prolonged, agonizing regional instability. The US and Israel are deeply aware of the prohibitive political and economic costs of a full-scale ground war. However, the economic stakes remain astronomical. As a transit point for 20% of the world's daily oil supply, any total closure of the Strait of Hormuz could push crude prices past $125 per barrel or higher in an extreme scenario. For nations like Indonesia, this would spell fiscal crises, surging logistics costs, and the looming specter of runaway food inflation. For now, the global order relies on shadow wars, cyber attacks, and proxy clashes, rather than total global conflict. Yet, the world stands on a knife's edge. In the high-stakes game of geopolitics, a single, reckless miscalculation by any actor could cause this managed instability to spiral into a catastrophe that no one, neither the giants nor the small nations, ever truly intended.